Alright guys, so I'm back and you may be wondering what you're looking at. This is my bathtub and this is where I do most of my dye work, or try to anyway, just to keep the mess contained in one area that's easy to clean. So I decided that I'm gonna do ice dyes for both of those shirts that I tied up, and I use these things. I think it's like what soda comes in, like when they deliver it to the store and stuff. I turn them upside down so I have like a grate kind of surface. And I have two of them, and that works out usually pretty good because it covers almost the entire span of the bathtub. So I'm gonna grab the shirts, be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I have both our shirts here. This one is the Fanfold that we did, and then down here we have the sunflower, the shirt we're making with the hemostats. I also decided to prop up one end of the Fanfold one to put it on an incline that will cause the dye to kind of spread out. Kind of gives it like this like sunburst kind of effect. I haven't done this before, but I have seen several people that have, and it usually always turns out looking pretty cool. And I just realized I want to turn this way. And the reason I want to turn it this way is because this is where we started our circle. Because right there is still my pink line. And I want the dye, excuse me, I want the dye to come down and out from that circle instead of going into it like it would have the way I had it laying. So this one, like I said on the other video, this one is probably going to be shades of blue. I have turquoise, royal blue, and deep space, which is a really dark navy color. And I think that will be pretty nice on this. And then the other one, I'm still debating. Like, I have in my head what I want, but I don't know if it's going to work out the way I want. But we will see. So I'm going to go get my other supplies together, my dyes and everything I need, and then I will be right back. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what you actually need to make your dream come to life. So like I said, both of these are going to be ice dye, and you can do ice dye by either placing your dye powder on top of the fabric, which is what I'm going to be doing today, and then placing the ice on top of it, or you can put the ice first and then put the dye over the top of the ice. That gives really cool color splits. If you have something that is not a pure color, like turquoise has no splits. That's a pure color. Whereas like chocolate brown, that will probably have some purple splits in it. Burgundy may split blue. You may not know what I mean by splits, but hopefully we'll get some either way, and I can show you what I mean. Now, all of these are Procyon fiber reactive dyes. Most of mine I get from Dharma Trading Company. It's a company based out in California. And I'm in Kentucky, so shipping is expensive. So keep that in mind depending on where you are, but their customer service is fantastic, and they have a very broad color selection. Now this one I actually got from Grateful Dyes. This is royal blue, and it's Procyon just like the other ones are. They're all the Procyon fiber reactive dyes. Whatever company you're getting, they're still like the same type of dye. It's just different blends to get different colors is all that it really is. But I got this one from Grateful Dyes because I needed a royal blue, and Dharma had been sold out for months. So, I don't know exactly. Oh, it says it's Colorado Wholesale Dye Group, so I'm assuming they're based in Colorado. It got here really quick. Shipping was okay. It could have been better, but it was fine. So yeah, and I also use a company called Pro Chemical and Dye. They're located on the East Coast. I think Connecticut, but I could be wrong on that. Their dyes are, they work very well. They ship super fast. If you order from them though, don't be surprised. There's no like fancy packaging. Like you'll open your box and stuff is wrapped with sales papers. But I'm not concerned about the packaging. I'm concerned about my dye, and it's all been top notch. It gets here quickly. Shipping is, for me, is relatively cheap because they are here on the East Coast. So anyway, enough about the dye. You are going to need clips, and lots of them. Anything you can clip. Bag clips, binder clips, crafter clips, whatever. You need clips. You're going to need gloves. And again, like I said in my last video, the fabric has been soaked in soda ash. It's not good for your skin. Also, and other than dyeing your skin whatever rainbow of colors you've chosen, you got to think about what is actually in the dye. Like I said, I've read that some of them are made with formaldehyde, and I cannot imagine that's good for your skin. Spoons. So this one, let's see, is, can't hardly read that, half a teaspoon. That's pretty small, but I have some super small ones here that I will show you. If I can dig one out. And these are 1/32 of a teaspoon. Like, it is teeny tiny, but that's really good to get some precise dye placements. I also have a couple of kid spoons that are no longer used as kid spoons. When you are doing this, anything plastic that you use, whether it is a Tupperware container, a plastic spoon, anything plastic that you had used for food and then you used for dye, do not use for your dye. It can seep into the crevices and stuff. It can pass chemicals on to the next person, even though you think you've washed it well. Just don't. It's not worth the risk. You're gonna need scissors and box cutter, and that is because when you do ice dye, you need some kind of form to go around to hold the ice in place. Otherwise, it's just going to end up melting and sliding off. And I don't really know what the recycling options are around me. So this is kind of my way of reusing boxes and stuff, because, you know, everybody orders from Amazon. Everybody's got boxes laying around. So I cut them up and I use them for this. And then you are also going to need a mask. Now, I spoke a little bit about masks in my last video, about how you need to wear one whenever you are working with these powders, whether you are ice dyeing, whether you are doing hot water irrigation, whether you are mixing up liquid dyes, you need a mask. And this is a 3M N95 mask. This is what they give you this is what they give doctors in the hospital. So it's a good mask. Now I want you to see, I hope it shows up. Can you see the little colored specks in there? That is because I have used this mask a couple of times for doing my dyes, and those are dye particles that have gotten trapped in the mask, and then the moisture from my breath has caused the dye to actually spread out a little bit to where you can see those particles in there. So it's coming through even an N95 mask. Preferably, you would want a respirator. Again, that is on my to get list, but for now, this is what I have, so this is what I use. You need to take that seriously. because this stuff can totally screw up your lungs if you let it. So just be careful, be safe, but have fun too. So I'm going to place the camera as best I can so you can actually see what I'm working with back here. This part of the video I will probably speed up because nobody wants an hour-long video of me rambling while I'm placing dye. So I'm gonna pause this, get the camera set where I need it, and then go from there. Okay, so I've got my mask, I've got my dyes selected, I'm putting on my gloves, I have my spoons ready to go, and I just tore my glove. Love that. Fun times with cheap Walmart gloves. Hold on. Okay, back, gloves now. All right, so I'm gonna start on the Fanfold shirt first. And what I usually like to do with my colors when I'm putting them down is to start with the lightest color and then work my way down to the darkest. Usually has a pretty good transition, usually turns out pretty nice. I don't always do that, but I try to. So I'm just getting my dyes open. Because you don't want to have to keep opening and closing containers while you're doing this. I have turquoise from Dharma. Can't really see in there, but I promise you it's there. We have the royal blue from Grateful Dyes. And then also from Dharma, Deep Space. And it is dark. So, spoons that they're ready. We're gonna start with some turquoise. And you're just going to take that and place it directly on there, trying not to lose a lot of it when you put it on there, and it just takes practice and steady hands. And so I like to take the spoon and kind of pat it. That can kind of, especially if your fabric is still a little damp, that will help it kind of stick where you have put it. And you don't have to worry too much about the sides of the piece. You know, when you're liquid dyeing, you have to get the sides, the front, the back, top, bottom, everything. But with this, we are not going to be turning it over. We are not going to be fooling too much with the sides. Hopefully we have enough dye in place that it will soak through and saturate the sides without too much problem. All right, so now I'm going to go with the royal blue. Again, just gently kind of packing it where I put it. The royal blue is a lot finer than my other blues that I have. It's a bit easier to work with. I like it a lot. And you want to get those like up as close to each other as you can without actually like overlapping them. I mean, you can overlap them. It'll just give you a different color, like you would have mixed the two colors together. And I poured too much in that spot. Just gonna kind of just gently tapping. And now for the next one is the Deep Space. I haven't used this one in a while. I gotta kind of stir it up a little bit. It's thicker and it's a little clumpy, so hold on. I've even seen some dyers put their dye through like a flour sifter kind of deal, which is nice in theory, but I am not that extra. And another thing, I like to try to place my color in the middle so I'm not losing as much off the sides, and then just kind of spread it out from there. I don't know why I stopped it there. But those are the 3 colors. And now I'm just going to continue alternating all the way down until I get to the bottom. So my next one is turquoise. And as I do the rest of this, I'm probably, when you see this, it's probably just going to be sped up, like a time-lapse kind of deal. Because it's not, there's only so much you can say about placing your dye. Okay, so I'm back. I am zoomed in a little bit, hopefully, so you can see a little better what I'm doing through here. We shall see. Get that to kind of lay down some. If it can, there we go. That's better. All right, now this one is not on an incline. It is just laying flat in the bathtub. So we're going to start from the very point of it and work our way back. And if you watched my last video, you'll know that part that is tied up right there at the point, that's going to be the center of the sunflower, and it is going to be all brown. So for my brown, I have Dharma's chocolate brown here, and it turns out pretty. It has some color splits. And overlook my coughing. I know right now the world is in a pandemic, and every time everybody coughs, everybody's like, oh no, it's the Rona. No, I'm just a smoker and have had chronic bronchitis most of my life, so I cough a lot. Promise it is not the Rona. At least I hope not. Don't really go anywhere or do anything. So and it's okay to get the dye up on the sinew at the end of it here a little bit if you want. That's fine. Just try not to go way over. Like, you don't want to go like halfway up into your petal with the brown. And I am trying to kind of cake it on here because I've probably pulled that sinew a little tighter than it needs to be. So I'm trying to get plenty of dye so it can hopefully get in there and saturate like I need it to do. Okay. There's the brown. Or at least that part of the brown. In the video that I watched, and I was wrong in my last video, that was not Ria's tie-dye, that was Fun Endeavors Labs that did the video that made me want to do this. But anyway, she used liquid, but she took a little bit of brown and went right under the curves of the hemostat to give the sunflower a little more definition. And I'm trying to think if I can do that without spilling too much brown. I am not the best when it comes to line work with ice dye. I mentioned Justin Biffer. He lays the prettiest lines I have ever seen when it comes to dye. I mean, they're just absolutely perfectly straight. They're gorgeous. And I am already not doing a good job here. I have my teeny tiny little spoon here. The problem is it's like a scoop instead of a spoon. And the dye that I get in it wants to come out as a little ball and then explode when it touches my fabric. So maybe we'll just do a little bit on both sides of the hemostat. Because at this point I don't have much choice because my dye went everywhere. Okay. Maybe the spoon. I don't like using the spoon like a regular, I say regular, but it's a kid's spoon, because there's so much. It picks up, like even when you're trying to get just the teeny tiniest little amount, it picks up a lot. And it's just hard. Well, it actually worked. Harder to place things where you want. Now I know Justin has a whole technique that involves both hands being very steady, and like just kind of tapping it out of there. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I don't have a lot of patience. My cat just crashed into the bathroom door. They've been kind of going at each other this morning. So, gently tap, tap, tap. Try to kind of keep it in line as best you can. I'm going to try to scooch some of this back because I want the lines to be thin, because if it spreads up too much, it's going to take over my yellow and it's just going to look muddy, and nobody likes muddy tie-dye. And again, be careful working around the hemostats. Don't put the pressure of your hand down on it, because that will move it, and two, it could cause it to come off of there, and then that's going to be a mess because you already have powder down and you're not going to get it placed back exactly where you had it. Outlining my petals right now. And I'm not going as heavy with it on these lines. I mean, I want them to saturate because I want it to be even top and bottom and middle and all the way through, but again, I'm worried it will take over my yellow that I'm going to put down. So we don't want that. And I'm sorry if my hand is blocking like what I'm doing. I am left-handed. I cannot do this right-handed without a major mistake. My right hand is not steady. Not that my left hand's much steadier, but my right, I definitely could not do this. I definitely could never do Justin's designs because I do not have the patience for this. I say that, but if I were to actually do one and it turned out halfway as good as his does, I would probably be hooked. I would probably be tying up every white piece of fabric in this house to keep making. And in my last video, I linked the channels and Facebook pages of some of those tie-dye artists that I mentioned. And I also found the one I was talking about that did the stitch design of the train engine, and he is linked in the description of the last video as well. But all of them, all the ones I talked about, they do some amazing things. We're getting there. One more set of hemostats to work around, and then we can move on to our yellow. Although I will say, as I go along down through here, I think I'm getting a little bit better at this. The last time I tried to do anything like this, I took a piece of cardstock and folded it in half, and I held it against where I was trying to place my dies to kind of keep it from falling off in areas that I didn't want, but I was afraid that that would block too much of what I was doing and you wouldn't be able to see it at all. So, but that's just a suggestion. Again, it goes back to whatever ends up working for you to get you where you want to be with your designs. These petals are probably gonna be a little muddy, but I don't think it'll be bad. I think it'll be just enough to give it some dimension, because flower petals are usually not one solid flat color. They have different shades and stuff in them, so maybe this will work to our advantage here. All right, so that does it for the brown. Let me set that aside. decided to go with bright yellow from Dharma for the most part of my petals. I still have something else in mind too. This is bright yellow. So let's get to work on that. Now don't just start scooping it in here. You know, try to pay attention to where your brown is. Try to not overlap if you can help it. I mean, you can do bigger scoops than what you were doing with the brown, but don't go overboard. Because if you just straight up overlap them, then yeah, it's gonna mix in too much with the yellow when the ice melts on it, and you will get muddy. And don't know if you noticed, but I use different spoons for each color. Simply because the spoon itself will pick up some of the particles. Even if you wipe it off, you probably won't get all of them without stopping and actually going and washing the spoon. So I usually just grab one for each color, and that way I'm not mixing my colors unintentionally when I'm dipping back into my containers. Yellow is another one that is a little difficult to get it to turn out exactly what you have in your head. So I do try to go a little heavy on it, but this is a tight work space right here, so just do the best you can. And sometimes yellows don't want to dissolve completely either, but they still usually turn out okay. I'm not trying to get directly up on the brown, but I'm just trying to get close to it because this dye will spread out as soon as water hits it. So it doesn't have to be touching. And honestly, in this case, it's probably better if it's not right up on each other, just to try to keep it from bleeding together and getting muddied. I had another idea. I was going to take some of Dharma's amber gold and kind of put along the outside edges here to give just a little more depth into the petals, but I don't know. It's very small workspace. I'm afraid I'll just end up dumping most of it off the side. And my yellow is starting to get out of hand here. Trying, but I got too big a scoop because I was busy talking. You know what though? I'm feeling a little froggy, so I think I'm going to do it. Okay. This is Amber Waves from Dharma. That's the color they say it turns out, but I've noticed it's more of a mustardy kind of color. And it doesn't look anything like a yellow when you first open it. It looks more of a peach color. And it's kind of caked up a little bit. Stir it. Just kind of play around there. Alright. I'm just going to get a little tiny bits and see if I can get them on this outside edges here. I'm not so worried about those mixing with the yellow. Like, that's okay, because it's still a shade of yellow. It should be all right. And the reason I'm doing the center is because that's usually where flower petals tend to have a little bit darker color. And the outside edges of these right now is what's going to be the center of our petals. So I know I said not to worry so much about the outside edge when we were working on the other, but just be in this situation, I am going to take some and try to kind of rub the edges with it, just because that is going to be the center of our petal, to make sure that it gets all the way through, because I'm putting just a minute little amount on the edges on top here, and I'm afraid it may not follow all the way through. I'm wanting to do something with amber waves for a while anyway, so might as well do it now. Again, I'm just going to kind of take a little bit in my spoon and try to rub on the edges with the spoon. And that may not get me a whole lot, but it'll get me some. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sorry, I was getting some phone notifications there. I was trying to see what was happening. Come on, spoon. I've even seen people take the powder and put it like in a syringe, like one of those that doesn't have the needle tip on it, and use it for dye placement, but every time I do that, I must be doing something wrong, because it doesn't want to come back out. And it's kind of hard to get it in the syringe to begin with, so I don't mess with that too much. Let's see here. Again, just taking a little bit and rubbing on the sides there. Not perfect, but it's looking kind of neat. Alright, let's see. I am out of spoons, so I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Had to go find another spoon. And I pretty much have decided that burgundy is going to be the color I put on the rest of this. I thought it would turn out pretty, so we're going to see. This will be the first thing I have done with the burgundy. That's what it looks like. So now this, where this is just a scrunch dye, and I'm just doing one color, you can just take it and just start sprinkling it. Toddlers, man, I'm telling you. They are in there with their dad, but it sounds like stuff is getting wild. Surprised they are not beating my door down right now. because usually I can't come in here without an audience. Now this is a little thicker than the rest of our work, so make sure you are liberally applying that dye because you want it to saturate all the way through. And I want to get some down in here, or else we're just going to have white on the outside of our sunflower, and that's not what I am after today. Man, it would be kind of cool, I guess. But just liberally, I mean, you don't want to pour the whole 8-ounce jar on here, but you want to use a good bit of it. And that's just something you just kind of learn as you go, because you don't really know how it's going to saturate with the amount you use until you actually try to use it. So. Scrunch ice dyes can turn out so pretty too, especially if you have a color that splits really well. They can turn out absolutely gorgeous. And my heart tells me do more scrunches, but I like to be complicated and make things difficult on myself. I am taking some around the outside edge on this part as well, just because where this is pretty thick, I just want to make sure that I've got some a little bit of everywhere, because you don't want to, it would be really disappointing to open this up and have this beautiful burgundy color and then the whole center of it just be white. Now I'm getting close to the blue shirt that I'm doing over here, so I need to be careful about applying this around the edges here, just because I have a limited amount of workspace. So, here we go. Let's zoom back out. A little bit. This is what we got so far. This is going to be our sunflower shirt. It's going to be our Fanfold. So I will take a break and I'll come back and put the forms on and go from there. And one more thing before I do the forms, because I almost always forget this step, but that's okay. If you do, you can go back and do this on top of the ice. This is my bucket of soda ash that I have made. Talked about that some in the last video as well. You do need to wear a mask when you are using soda ash. If nothing else, it will make you sneeze your brains out if you don't. I usually can't even barely open this without sneezing. And some people get real fancy with their soda ash, and I just kind of make it snow. Like, now these shirts were soaked in soda ash, and I know people say that that usually turns out fine, but I feel like that the ice, as it's melting, is diluting the amount of soda ash in the shirt, so that's why I am adding this on top of it. Soda ash is basically what's going to activate your dye and help it bond to the fabric. It's very important for ice dyeing, especially. Well, really any dyeing with Procyon dyes. So now it looks like Christmas happened, and I'm going to do the same thing to the Fanfold shirt. Just sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. I should have gloves. I took them off because I thought I was taking a break for a minute and I remembered I needed to do this. So, but wear gloves if you do this, okay? Don't be mean. Okay. Alright, soda ash is on. So, now I'm going to take a break, come back, and I'll do the forms. Okay, so I just noticed I have some hemostats that are trying to kind of lay back. And I don't know that that would really affect the design I'm after here, but on the off chance it will, what I do, I take a smaller pair of hemos and just kind of put down in this grate to prop it up. Just as gently as you can, because like I said, these dudes are under a good bit of pressure. These particular ones that I'm using are, these smaller ones are 5 inches. So they don't quite reach the bottom of my tub, but it doesn't lack a whole lot. And you can actually take and put it on both sides of the problem if you need to. Here we go. My ones on the other side look fine. I don't know what happened to these two. They just decided they wanted to be extra today. Alright, so basically the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut cardboard and fit it around my project. Now it will not be going in and out of each hemostat because that's ridiculous and annoying. Basically I'm going to have 2 pieces coming up just like this does, and then I'll make a piece to go around the scrunch section. And as I said earlier, that is just to hold the ice in place as I am putting it on there, so it doesn't just fall right off when it melts. So this is definitely going to be a time lapse because it takes a while, and there's really, it's just one of those things you just have to trial and error it and see what is working best for your situation. So here we go. And that's what the box cutter and the scissors were for, by the way, if you didn't pick up on that. And I'll be using like Amazon boxes and diaper boxes. If you have a box that has like a printed design on it, I have found it makes no difference whether that is touching your project or the plain cardboard side is touching it, like either way. So you don't have to have, you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, I think that ought to about do it. So, pick you up now, sorry. So that's going to be the Fanfold, and you can see where the cardboard hit it a minute ago and knocked some of that off. I think it'll be fine. And then this is our sunflower words. I forget words. So I'm going to go get the ice, and then I will come back and show you how I put that on. Alright, I am back for the last step in this for now. I had to go bust up my bag of ice. And you can use ice, you know, whatever ice you can get your hands on. It doesn't matter. I've even seen people take snow, like when it snowed, and use it to do an ice dye with. So it's just whatever you have available. Now, you don't want to just straight up just pour it on there because it's going to move your dye powder. So you want to just very carefully just kind of control where that is falling out to. Especially when you get down into the more detailed pieces. In fact, those I don't even do with a cup. I take those and I just work some ice down in there by hand to keep it from manipulating my die too much. And even though I've been wearing gloves up until about now, I still don't know how well it's going to pick up, but I still am getting dye on my hands. And if you have dye on your hands, be careful with the ice. Dye will transfer from your hands onto the ice, and you may end up with colors in places you didn't intend for those colors to be. Just something to be aware of. And I'm definitely going to go back here and put more. I'm just trying to get like a base. Once you have it initially covered, you can be a little more generous with it. But still, don't get too wild with it because you'll end up moving everything and then you'll be in trouble. And don't worry if you lose a couple of pieces. Like, it's not the end of the world. Just try to keep as much of it as you can on the project. And also try not to get your fingers too close to the project when you're doing this, because you'll pick up dye and transfer it around on your ice. Is. That's it. So now this needs to sit, the ice needs to melt, and it needs to sit for at least 24 hours after the ice melts. My plan is to put a small heater here in my bathroom, raise the temperature in here, because it will bond to the fabric quicker if it's warmer in here. Plus the ice melts faster, which means I get to start my time faster, yada yada yada. So this is where I leave you. I will come back to you when it is time to rinse and see what we have.